lagging behind. So once I get confirmation here, and it says we're live. So here we go. All right. Welcome everybody to Remote Leadership Unleashed, where we explore perspectives on hiring, managing, and scaling distributed teams. I'm delighted to have you join us for this episode filled with valuable insights and actionable strategies. But first, just to let you know, Quickly Hire is the fastest way to add vetted freelancers to your team. At Quickly Hire, we understand the importance of assembling top-tier talent for your business. Whether you need a developer, a content marketer, designer, virtual assistant, or any other technical or creative professional, we've got you covered. Our platform can connect you with highly vetted freelancers who match your budget and requirements, ensuring you find the perfect fit for your team. So today on Remote Leadership Unleashed, we have a very special guest joining us, Justin Ferriman. Most of you probably know of Justin. He's a very successful founder who now coaches SaaS and agency founders at Bright Growth. Justin was the founder of LearnDash, the incredibly popular WordPress LMS that was acquired by Liquid Web in 2021, I believe. That's correct. Yep. And Justin sold that startup with incredibly impressive growth stats, 32% year-over-year growth and 76% profits. So you can see why founders and agency owners are turning to him for coaching success these days. And I'll make sure to mention this again at the end, but Justin is offering a handful of free 1-hour strategy sessions. If you're interested in growing your business and going the coaching route, you can sign up for one of those free sessions at brightgrowth.com. And I will mention that again at the end, but that's brightgrowth.com for a free 1-hour strategy session with Justin. So now you can sit back, relax, and get ready to unleash the full potential of your remote team with Remote Leadership Unleashed and our guest, Justin. So welcome, Justin. It's good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me and that very warm introduction. I have to say before we jump into anything, we were talking offline, but I'll reiterate, I have some clients now that are using Quickly Hire and they're very, very pleased with the service they've been getting. So kudos to you guys and your team for just creating a service that is definitely needed in the space.
Awesome. Well, thank you. It's really great to hear that. I love hearing that feedback all the time. Obviously, it's the kind of feedback you want to hear. So thanks for sharing that. Appreciate it. Did I miss anything in the intro, Justin? Anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that's fine. Yeah, that was really nice. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, my pleasure. All right, well, let's jump right into it then. So we're here to talk about remote team management, asynchronous teams, all of that. So any of that is fair game here. But let's start with kind of a big question, and it is motivating your team. How do you, some people can find it challenging to motivate a remote team when you're not all in an office together, you're not, gathering around a whiteboard kind of a thing. So what's your tips, strategies, tricks for keeping remote team members motivated?
That's a great question. There is no probably silver bullet for this. I can just share what I did, especially when I was running LearnDash, which at its peak had about, well, when I was there, I don't know how many they have now, but 40 people. And obviously you just get to those numbers hiring one at a time. We use Slack, which a lot of people do, for just convening around in our office and our virtual office and talking with one another. I found that there were two things that really worked for me in motivating the team and of any size. And I always made a point to do this. And one was just for the leader, whoever is the leader, to reach out directly to the people on the team, just to talk to them about their life and their day. I mean, I did this my whole career with LearnDash. No matter the team size, I just ping them, send them direct message. Hey, how's it going? What's up with your life right now? I know this when I was an employee as a consultant years ago, that when upper management or project leaders would reach out just to chat, it just felt good. I always gave kudos as well. I think we don't do that enough and tell people that they've done a really good job. So I would always do that in public and reprimand in private, as most people know. I was never reprimanding anyone, but if something was needing to be addressed, I'd always do that privately. But I'd always celebrate other people and the accomplishments they were getting. If they got a good review from a customer in our support desk, for example, if one of our developers did something really incredible that they've been working on for a long time and that release was going out, I'd always give kudos to the team. The other part of it when running a virtual team that really helped with the team building and just people being motivated to come to work were in-person events. We did, of course, Zoom events and like things where we get together and just like have like a happy hour. Those help. But whenever there was a conference we could get to, flew everybody out, put them in a hotel, like they got that experience and not having to pay and just go and be with the team. And that created this bond that you just are going to always miss if you're staying 100% virtual. So whenever possible, having people come together, whether it's a retreat once a year or meeting at a conference or several conferences, even if the whole team can't, it's important to get that in-person time.
I love that. I think that that is so important too. Is that something the event one, 40 people is a lot of people. Is that something you would make open for everyone, or was it, the marketing team or sales team or that sort of thing?
It was open for everybody. It definitely gets
Yeah.
expensive as the team gets bigger. One of the things that worked really well that I always did was having a team dinner. So whenever we went to a conference, wherever, there's always I do some research ahead of time, figure out a restaurant that would be really nice for everybody, and we would go and have this team dinner where it's covered by the company. We all would just hours hang out and laugh and talk, interact, and have a really great meal together. I underestimated how important that was for the team. I mean, we went to the conference. We're still kind of working, but interacting with one another. But having that time where we're just getting together and talking about life and laughing and investing in one another in the relationships. And I always made a point to talk to everybody and make them feel valued. Gave a little talk every time at the dinners to let them know how important they are to the success of the company and to me. And that just, I think, interacting on a human level made all the difference. So a lot of times it's not a lot to motivate people, I find. It's just the simple things, being kind, appreciating who they are, and that will go a long way.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that. And I love that. I love what you said about giving kudos when those are due as well, because especially if you're working at, a growth focused, very productive company, startup kind of mindset, it's always you finish one thing and it's quickly on to the next thing, on to the next thing, especially. And if you're someone who thrives in that sort of environment, that's how your mind's working as well. So you barely even take the time to celebrate a job well done,
Yeah.
right? It's like, oh, thank God that's over. Now what's the next project? But to hear from your manager or your founder, kudos to you for doing a great job. I'm sure that, I know that has a big impact on motivation.
It does. Yeah. And if you can do it informally or even formally, we had an appreciation. Like every month, we were giving out Amazon gift cards for high performers and things like that. And we would try to
Nice.
cycle through the performers and we would let the team like nominate others anonymously, like through some forms. And we just made sure everybody got their time in the spotlight.
Awesome. I love that. Thanks for sharing. Now, switching gears a little bit, when you're hiring your team, whether it's full-time remote hires or contract hires, what are some of those? Obviously, you're looking at the skills that the position demands, but what are some of the key elements you're looking for in someone to make a good match for your team, to make sure you're getting the right people on the bus, as they say?
Yeah, for me, I always placed a huge premium on communication. Developers or support personnel is often what we were hiring when I was running things at LearnDash. And if you didn't know how to communicate in a timely fashion, especially this day and age, like I'm not big on sending emails and just wondering what's going on. So when I was hiring people and interacting before they were hired, if there were too long of delays going on, I just would they weren't going to be a good fit for me because in order for a company to be nimble and move fast and uh, to have to make changes quickly or whatever it may be, you need to be able to communicate and know that you're going to get a response back really quickly, whether they're logged into Slack or not. And this was true for folks that were maybe not in the same time zone, maybe they're on the other side of the world, but they just had to be good communicators online within the team. This was something I often looked for when hiring folks. In fact, I purposely set up, I had a 5-stage system when I was hiring folks. And that system was intentionally 4 to 6 weeks because I wanted also to know that they would stick with it. I wanted people to stick with uh, the process because that's an intangible quality of somebody. their ability to see something through. So that's how I always tested that when I was hiring. And
I
some
love
people
that.
would self-eliminate, right? They'd just be like, they would stop responding. There's the communication piece. They would drop out. They wouldn't get back. They'd miss deadlines because I would have specific deadlines in the process. And those were, this was before I even had to have conversations with them. So it was really easy just to be like, okay, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. Until I got somebody that had that quality of they stick with it. They're persistent. They communicate. And then, they have the technical know-how or whatever the requirements for the position, and that was icing on the cake.
Awesome. I love that. And I'm so happy to hear you mention communication because I agree. Like it's so important, especially in a remote setting, right? If you have a virtual team, if you're not communicating well, it's really hard to get work done and to plan and know what's happening. So
I think
yeah.
I think that goes to say, like in any relationship of any kind, if the
Yeah.
communication is off, it's like it usually all comes back to that. It's like there's a misunderstanding or communication problem.
It does.
No different in business.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly on that one. Across all facets of life. So yes. And everyone can always improve their communication. So even when you think you're the best at it, there's probably improvements to make there. Um, all right. So we talked about, what you're looking for when you're hiring folks to your team. We talked about, kind of how you identify that. I loved that process you talked about. That's really smart. And I'm going to take that back to our team also, because I think it's a good way. You're looking to kind of pull out those red flags, right, in the hiring process before you have to deal with it too far down the road. Let's talk about how you decide which position to hire for. Lots of folks watching, whether you're an agency owner or early stage startup, you can probably think of 20 positions that would help your company right now. But how do you decide which one to hire now?
For me, it was the thing I hated doing the most, meaning whatever I was doing in that moment that I was sucking the fun out of work for me, there was probably somebody who had fun doing that exact thing. For me, it was support. I'm not a developer. So when I started LearnDash, I had a contract developer, but what I could do was answer support tickets. So I committed to doing that. Pretty savvy with WordPress, but don't know, anything from a coding perspective. I did that for years, probably too long, because I got to the point where I'm like, oh, there's the success. And we get trapped in this mindset. Like, this got me to this point of success, so I need to keep doing this to get to that next level of success. And it took other people kind of nudging me, encouraging me to get out of that, to work on the business. Like, look, like your best assets are not working with customers. It's going to be the creative thinking, being competitive, looking at the market space, driving development direction, things like that. So support was the first thing I hired. Took way too long, and I still worked in support when I hired them because I was trying to transition. Eventually got the confidence to be like, okay, have enough people doing support. They can raise tickets to me if it's a big issue or somebody's really angry. But then even got away from that, hired managers and had different people in place to handle that whole workflow. That's not to say, some people on here might not have a support thing, but like maybe it's pre-sales inquiries that come in or project management or things like that. Like if you don't like doing it, hire somebody. I coach somebody that is an incredible designer, good at people skills too and managing people, but despises that. It sucks away his creativity. So he has set up now in his agency somebody that handles those inquiries. Like he doesn't work directly with the client. They can't just tap him on the shoulder. They have to go through the project manager in order to, for that to be communicated. And if it's necessary, he will jump on a call. And so he can focus on design and things that he loves and ultimately is what they're known for.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. I think that's really helpful advice because I'm sure everybody watching, has an aspect, a facet of their job that they don't enjoy doing. And the key is to, write down how you do it, create the process for it, and hire someone and hand it off, right? You got to be able to do that part too.
It's also just realizing that we're, as entrepreneurs, we are the creators of our reality. So if you're ever in a rhythm that doesn't really vibe with you and you're like, man, this stinks, whatever, it's like you have yourself to blame, but you also have yourself to be able to change it. And like, that's empowering, knowing that you can change your reality at any point in time. just by hiring, for example, somebody to fill that role and take those responsibilities away.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you said also, what got you here won't necessarily get you there. So even if it was a one person effort, just you building this company, obviously that's not going to get you to a huge, valuation and a big exit down the road, or, it could, but it's not always the case. So what gets you to one point isn't the same tools, same team, same anything that you need to get to that next level. So I liked that aspect of what you said as well. All right, let's talk a little bit about communication. So we've already touched on this a bit. We agree it's paramount. How do you establish trust and accountability with remote team members? This is something, we see a bit at Quickly Hire with some of our client and freelancer relationships, where you might have a desire to micromanage and to know everything that's going on because you can't stand over them and see when they're working. A lot of times it's asynchronous because of people located in different parts of the world. How do you foster trust and accountability without the micromanaging part of it?
Mm-hmm. Good question. And that's such a tough thing to do with a remote team. And I don't know if we really have that nailed down yet as an industry.
Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, the occasional 1% of bad actors are out there. They are savvy and pretending like they're like working or reliable, or have it, you have their trust in it. But, little things I think helped in my situation. One was it would be, I don't know if micromanage is the right word, but hand holding initially. Mm-hmm. So when somebody came in, they had immediately assigned somebody that they would always report to. So in the case of a support rep, they would come into the team. They couldn't grab their own tickets. That person they were assigned to, a lead or maybe a manager, would assign them the tickets with notes at the top, like, hey, this would be a good one for you to try, da da da. Let me know if you have any questions. And they could have conversations back and forth on these tickets. And that would go on for about 2, sometimes 3 weeks, as they did the onboarding material, as they then were answering support or getting their feet wet with support. And then they were allowed to start choosing their own, but that lead or manager would be reviewing their tickets and providing feedback with a tool that we had used at that same time to make sure they're on point with their answers, and understanding that they're just coming up to speed. So things are going to be a little bit rough, but that's okay. We have patience. And then over time, letting that go, because ultimately as a remote team, like, you need to have that trust. So we tried to not just throw them in the deep end and get frustrated if it wasn't working out, tried to really guide them. Once we felt like they had a good feel of things, it was like, all right, you can start grabbing your own tickets, and maybe the level 1 tickets or the pre-sales, and start with that. And then constantly reviewing and providing feedback for the first couple months, but then decreasing those check-ins, especially if things were going well. If there were things they needed to change, having those meetings one-on-one in like Zoom, that they could get that feedback and hear it, not through like a cold written message in Slack, but like, a human element. So they know that it's like, that you're doing a good job, but like, this is what we want to see different. And usually that worked out. If it didn't, then maybe it wasn't a good fit, but it usually would work out, and you could trust them and just look at the reports going forward and make sure they're being productive.
I love that. Yeah. Setting the stage, setting expectations sounds like a big part of that. And again, back to communication, right? Making sure they're communicating and talking about the work they are doing, asking the questions, and the whole time you or the manager is always watching that those are the right questions to be asking at that stage, and those sorts of things.
Yeah. And I always got nervous if the new hires never asked questions, right? So like, there was always this overemphasis, like, ask us questions. Like, we know you're not going to know, like, please ask us, ask us, ask us. And the ones I did, I worried about less, because like they cared to be able to try to figure it out and make sure they're doing it right. So yeah, just making it a two-way street, not just like, hey, being, pontificating what you want to these new employees is a good way to get them invested into the team earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. Great advice there. You mentioned tools a little bit in that response, and then earlier on, are there any tools that you would recommend for folks who are building a remote team, virtual team, tools that you relied on that really helped facilitate that?
Obviously, Slack and Zoom were
Yeah.
kind of the main things. We didn't get too fancy with like the team building tools. Just using for our intranet, I think when we used what's the popular CRM thing that everybody uses?
Intercom?
I can't remember. I'm drawing a blank on it. It's just where we house our documents. We had there our like employee appreciation program, and those were just like Google Forms and stuff like that to fill out. In terms of the communication aspect, I can say I know a lot of agencies even, but definitely product companies will use like Help Scout. We used Help Scout obviously, but we used another app called Klaus app, KLAUSAPP.com, I believe, or it's Klaus.app. I can't remember. They have a picture of a cat as their logo. But this was like that third element for, yeah, obviously you have reporting in these tools, but this was a way for managers to then like provide specific feedback for tickets and to monitor and things like that for
Nice.
the other agents that were working on tickets. So we used that, and that helped with the communication aspect of the team.
Awesome. But it sounds like you kept most things to, morale and team building and all that was in Slack, creating a space for people to come together and communicate and
Yeah,
talk and connect
we
was
had
Slack.
several channels, and like everybody does, but it's just
Yeah.
important to like, it's almost an investment you have to make as a owner. Like you can't just be absent and not posting. Like you should be posting the silly little memes if you want, like participating in the group, going to the other channels that are like, movies or whatever you had, for
Hmm.
entertainment, just like investing in more than just um, the work channel,
Yeah.
like where people are talking about work, but like other things where they can just like be themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are oftentimes, the important channels too, right? The ones that, like we
Well,
talked about in the beginning, motivate and keep people engaged. Um, all right. That brings us to, if you have a kind of top takeaway, let's say you have someone coming to you with problems about, their top pain point right now is they've, got a team, everyone's remote. Some of them are asynchronous, some of them are, in their time zone, but they just are feeling overwhelmed with managing their team.
Mhm.
What's your top, what would be your top tip for that person?
Hire a manager to help manage the team. That's what I did. Like we were talking offline that
Yep.
I love being an entrepreneur. I don't love being a manager of people. I'm probably not the greatest at it, and probably okay. I love talking with people, interacting, and I'd always invest in people in that way. But in terms of managing their careers or managing their work on a day-to-day basis, or being that resource, as the team got bigger, that got more challenging for me to do as I was focusing in other areas. So I started hiring, for lack of a better word, like HR um, personnel, people that we
Hmm.
could specialize in those areas, and creating a structure where, and you don't have to be big to create the structure. You could just, if your team of 8 or something, I think they say the maximum team size is like 12 before you have to like siphon into 2 teams of 6 and 6 for productivity reasons, and people feeling like they're not getting lost in the noise. Then you'd have like 2 team leads, then, or even 8, you'd have a team lead of the 4 and 4. Like I started with leads before managers, just like to create a little separation. And then I got to managers with 2 leads underneath, and creating structure. I know we do appreciate a flat organization. I did for a little bit, but at a certain point, it's like kind of a necessary evil. I don't know if it's evil, but it's just a necessary aspect to a growing business, that having that structure is creates makes it easier for expectations, level setting, investing in your people, even for the leader. For me, I could talk to the managers and get a good sense of the team without having to like guess or like go to each individual all the time. So again, going back to like hiring those things that maybe you're stretched to complete or do on a daily basis, or that you don't like doing, that will go a long way.
Yeah, I love that. It really brings it kind of full circle too. To there's things you don't like doing, things that are sucking the fun out of your day to day. Hire someone to do them, right? Figure out a way to bring someone in for that.
There's people that are really good at that, like, and they
Yeah.
really enjoy that aspect.
Hmm.
It's kind of like a level up for your agency, no matter the team size.
Yeah, absolutely. And it reminded me, you said the 12-person, 6-person rule. It's there's the two pizza rule, right? So you want teams that are the size to be fed by two pizzas and that's it. And that apart from that, you need to start separating and
Yeah.
building around that. I don't know if I think it was Steve, it might have been Steve Jobs. I might be making that up, but there's some two pizza rule out there.
I have fond memories of when the team was 12 people and under. I mean, it is different,
Yeah.
Obviously the team had to grow because of the success it was having, the company, and that was just necessary. But being a small, nimble team like that, it makes it so much easier to invest in one another and really get to know one another. And that part was really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I came into, prior to my role here, I years ago worked at a startup. And I think I was like the 30th team member employee there. And there was that initial team of 10. And they were always talking about when they were the team of 10.
Good old days.
The good old days. Like, I don't even know who that person is over there now. And this was in office. It was, it wasn't even a virtual team. So imagine a virtual team where you really don't know who's signing on each day and saying hi and the Slack and everything. So yeah, if you kind of apply all of the things you know and are familiar in an office setting and take that office away and still try to create the good feelings and the motivation and all of that. There's a lot that goes into it for sure.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Justin. Is there anything else you want to add about that we didn't touch on about, managing a remote team, hiring, any of that sort of stuff?
Yeah,
we touched on a lot.
The only thing I'll add, and I think you probably have a whole show on this, is I would think I was in some ways too slow to let some people go. It was a lesson learned, and I think looking back on some ways I would change that is obviously have those honest conversations with people, but number one priority is your business and your own mental health. And so even if somebody's really good, I just coached somebody, they had this rock star developer. They were making a lot of money for this person's agency. And he was telling me, I can't let him go. I can't let him go, this and that. But then he was listing off all these reasons why he's difficult to work with and why his salary and benefits, everything were actually tough for the company that was going through some tough times. And just through our conversations, like I would just ask questions, and he came to realize like this, he could let him go and be okay. Everybody's replaceable, everybody. And so make those decisions, those tough decisions. And now afterwards, he's like, yeah, it was kind of hard, but like, I feel so much better. And that was a similar story for me when people were let go, that should have been let go probably earlier. I felt better. The team felt better. The morale went up. So I know it's not something we all like to talk about. We want to talk about hiring, creating the great team, but sometimes it doesn't work out. And give them the chance. But when it's time, and let them
go. Absolutely. And thank you for that, because that is a question that's really sorely missing from this lineup of questions. So I'm going to add that in to future interviews as well, because it is so important, right? It's true. You want to talk about building a great team, but what happens if you have someone that's holding people back and not driving folks forward? When you're a small company, when you're, growth driven and all of it, there's no room for that kind of person on the team, unfortunately. So yeah, it's important to be able to identify it and act on it as well. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Justin. This has been a wonderful interview. I want to remind everybody that Justin is a coach now for SaaS and agency founders. And he's very generously offering 1 hour strategy session for a handful of folks who are watching this. You can go to brightgrowth.com. And I'll put that in the comments on these live streams once I finish up here. But go to brightgrowth.com, and there's a form on the page, right, Justin? And they can fill that out and get on a strategy session with you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me. This was a pleasure, and I will keep my eye on Quickly Hire, and I will keep recommending you guys.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Justin. Thank you so much for your time today and sharing all of your expertise with us. I appreciate it. And thanks everyone for watching and tuning in. See you later.